You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi. Today it is Wednesday. It's April 9th, 2025. And welcome to CorsiNation.com. We're broadcasting again into Corsi Nation. And you can follow us on X at CorsiJerome1 and at Substack. It's JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. Now, I have a new article today in American Thinker. Let's go to that first. And what I'm doing on American Thinker is really, exposing the fraud, the voter fraud that's gone on in Wisconsin. And I'm saying that the Wisconsin Supreme Court election for a Supreme Court seat, it screams for the Department of Justice criminal investigation. Okay, so, what's Pam Bondi doing? And, Kash Patel, big fanfare, they're coming in. Where's the investigations? Okay, so this Wisconsin election that was held on April 1, you had this completely leftist Crawford, she was, adamantly opposed to any voter IDs, and she was facing Brad Schimmel, who was a former attorney general in Wisconsin. Well, Crawford won 55 to 45%. She got almost 240,000 more votes than Schimmel. And in the same election, 63% of the voters supported an amendment to the Wisconsin state constitution requiring a voter ID. So now how do those voters vote for a voter ID and then split their ticket and vote for Crawford? I mean, it's ridiculous. And the amendment carried every one of Wisconsin's 72 counties except for Madison and Milwaukee. And, the whole disconnect here between the two outcomes is stunning. And when you take a look at the entire report that we have from Andrew Saquette, we see that there are about 875,000 modified duplicate records in the Wisconsin database. It's one of the most severely, I think, criminal databases of the Wisconsin Election Commission, and it's outrageous. These algorithms make it possible to create these modified duplicates, and they create non-existent voters that can then be used in mail-in ballot schemes. There shouldn't be any non-existent voters in the voter roll. Okay, so the Wisconsin Democrats also, I think, stole a seat from Republican challenger Eric Hovde, who was running for Senate on the election night, November 6th, 2024. At 4 a.m, it was 108,000 absentee ballots were dumped from Milwaukee, 90% going for Hovde's opponent. And that had not been the way Milwaukee had been voting during the day, when Hovde received 22% of the vote out of Milwaukee in person. So, this whole system, the Wisconsin vote system, it can be penetrated by a lot of different officers who can access it. There's 1,852 municipal clerks, 72 county clerks, and the Wisconsin Election Commission staff who can have access to the database of voters by password and a username and password, voter ID, and can be accessed. And there's a huge number of inactive voters. Okay, there's almost 8 million rolls altogether in this database, 3.8 million registered active voters, but there's 4.4 million registered inactive voters, which total 8.2 million voters in a state that has a population of 5.9 million people. It's almost like 2 million more people in the voter roll than people in the state, which is ridiculous. And this has got to be stopped. It's criminal to maintain these kind of databases. The criminals are the election officials. Now let's talk about the Department of Justice. I'm getting sick of Kash Patel coming to hockey games with Wayne Gretzky, get pictures taken of himself. Pam Bondi, who I think still supports DeSantis more than she supports Trump, coming from Florida as she does. The Justice Department is serious. Here's what you do. You form a task force around, look at what Obama did. Task force around Operation, Hurricane, Crossfire Hurricane. That was the Russian hoax investigation. It was all a lie, all completely BS. But they put a group of dedicated attorneys from the Department of Justice on the case. They put FBI agents on the case. They created a task force. So they have a task force dedicated. They have a code name, which is Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Then they go out and they, with subpoenas, start investigations. They create a grand jury. They call people before the grand jury. They get indictments, and they work towards prosecutions. Okay, now, where is the Bondi, Kash Patel task force investigating the FISA court crimes committed by Operation Crossfire Hurricane? Okay, this judge who's denying everybody in terms of the ability to deport criminals from Venezuela is Bosbert, or whatever the guy's name is, this bozo. He was the judge that they went to in the FISA court. Okay, so go after him for criminal violations. The entire FISA court in Operation Crossfire Hurricane was based on the Steele dossier, which the DOJ knew was a lie. Why do they know it was a lie? Because Hillary Clinton, laundering money through Perkins Coie, her law firm, was paying for it. And it was filled with trash about Donald Trump that had no chance of being true. I want a task force, a Bondi Patel task force, investigating the crimes that went on with Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Where's the task force on election integrity? Trump has signed an executive order saying that we now are going to go after demanding voter ID and proof of citizenship. 19 states have filed against this to block it. Okay, let's criminally investigate what these 19 states have done with their databases. Their databases are filled with illegal immigrants voting. They're filled with duplicate but modified votes. They've got non-existent voters. They've got active and inactive databases that they can switch back and forth. Let's investigate each one of these states. And I'll be happy to do it with God's Five Stones. We're raising more money in God's Five Stones, and we're going after criminal investigations. Wisconsin demands a criminal investigation. And if Patel and Bondi can't do it, let's get somebody in there who can do it. It's ridiculous. Let's start counting down the days. So many days in office, and Patel and Bondi have done, nothing. If we get to 100 days, there was no criminal investigation going on in the Department of Justice on Operation Crossfire Hurricane, which I was involved in. They want to put me in prison. I refused to take their plea deal. It broke up my 32-year marriage. My wife had an affair a year later. PTSD. Couldn't stand it. Wanted me to quit politics. Okay, so they've ruined my life. They tried to ruin General Flynn's life. They didn't ruin anything. They ruined themselves. God took my wife out of my life so I could go back to work. And that's just the truth of it. I think God is on the warpath here. And God's going to win. Again, I encourage everyone to understand the admonition we were given in 2 Chronicles 7:14. It starts with us asking God to forgive us for letting this criminal, insane, communist, mad, treasonous Democratic Party from taking hold. In fact, finally, Senator Kennedy said yesterday what I've been saying about AOC. That is, the way to defeat her is give her a microphone. Let her speak. She's the official head of the Democratic Party. These people are insane. They're now supporting judges with lawfare. They're supporting Venezuelan criminals in our courts who they want to protect by judges before we can deport them for being here illegally. Judges like the Supreme Court want to give them their rights under due process. Screw that. They're not here under due process. They're here criminally. Let's round them up and get them out of here. Tom Homan is right. And by the way, maybe they could deport the Supreme Court while they're at it. Just as, Amy, whatever her name is, and John Roberts, who does nothing but trash Trump talk at his, Tony Country Club. If these people can't enforce the Constitution, there's a remedy. Donald Trump should ignore them. The Constitution did not give the Supreme Court an enforcement power for a reason. The Supreme Court did not want judicial tyranny. These nutcase judges funded by Soros, along with the nutcase prosecutors, want to defend criminals. We got to deport all these justices. The simple solution is for Donald Trump to introduce a resolution in Congress to reorganize the federal courts, which means all federal court judges and the district and circuit courts are going to lose their jobs. And Trump can appoint them all over again once Congress reorganizes the district and supreme and the circuit courts. Only the Supreme Court is protected in the Constitution. The Constitution says that Congress from time to time can constitute other federal courts as needed. Well, it's needed now to get rid of all these federal courts, all these federal judges, and do it over again. I think, and then the state prosecutors that are woke and lawfare, let's start investigating and prosecuting them. Again, we've got to take an end to this criminal Marxist Democratic Party, which has gone traitorous. And I want to encourage the release here of the J6 films, which show the Department of Justice, the DC Capitol Police, bussing in protesters and dressing them up as Trump supporters. Those videos exist. Let's get them out there and show them. Trump has given pardons to the J6ers, and they deserve it. Okay? It's now time to form a task force on Congress. Okay, where's the task force on Liz Cheney for wrongful imprisonment of these people? Where's the task force investigating the crimes committed against the J6ers? Again, if Kash Patel and Pam Bondi can't do the job, get out of the way. If they want to do the job, then get with it. If they want to run the Department of Justice, here's how the Department of Justice is run. Task forces, Attorney General appoints DOJ lawyers, puts one in charge of the investigation. If that person is woke, fire that person. That person's job is to make sure the crimes are investigated by the FBI. Kash Patel assigns FBI agents to it. That task force gets a grand jury. They seek, with their subpoena power, to get evidence. They bring people before the grand jury. They indict them and convict them. It's not hard. That's how the Department of Justice works. I'll start publishing articles now instructing Kash Patel and everybody else in the Department of Justice how it works. See if they can do the job. We don't need another Bill Barr, with his saxophone and it wasn't bagpipes. It was bagpipes. With bagpipes, making a fool of himself, going around with his Scottish kilt when he did nothing, absolutely nothing, except go work with corrupt inspector generals who gave a pass. Comey, if you remember that speech about Hillary Clinton's server, he said it was wrong, it was bad, it violated laws, but she didn't intend to do it. Well, intention wasn't part of the law. Okay, there have been various people prosecuted for publishing classified material. They didn't intend to commit a crime, but yet they published classified material, and they were sent to prison for it. Hillary Clinton got a pass. What about the task force on the Clinton Foundation scam? They stole billions of dollars in Haiti. They stole billions of dollars in Egypt, in Haiti and India. They sent drugs made in India to Africa to cure AIDS. The drugs wouldn't cure anybody. They were defectively made. All the Clintons did was run a scam. And by the way, it's coming out now that the reason that Zelenskyy will not sign a rights deal is he's already given the rights deal to Pinochet, who is the original oligarch who in 2013 started working with Hillary Clinton in the State Department, giving money to the Clinton Foundation. It was the beginning of the Maidan rebellion, the color revolution from Soros that all disrupted Ukraine. We are the aggressors in Ukraine. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But first, I want to play a few clips. There's a few good clips we've got. Chris, why don't you let us know what you've queued up, and let's play a couple of these.
All right, shall we start with the speech, or you want to start with what happened? What a really interesting discussion between the Treasury Secretary and Tucker Carlson.
Let's hear let's do that one first, then we'll go to Trump's speech.
That's what President Trump is doing now. For years, the American worker, uh, middle class has been eviscerated. American workers have taken it on the chin, and we're just starting to see some of the research now. Like, we're seeing research on what's called the China shock from 2004. It's just coming out now, and it's what it's what I know. But finally, academics are saying, "Oh, the American workers never recovered from the China shock. What a surprise." And President Trump sensed it 40 years ago, but out in the campaign trail starting in 2015 up until last year, he has promised the American workers that the old standard of living can come back. And because what we've seen over the past at least 20 years since the China shock, but more like the past 30, are these massive distributional problems.
That's Besson, he's Secretary of the Treasury. And he's explaining that what he really is talking about is the free trade agreements that go back to the end of World War II with the United Nations and all the hoopla. We were going to be the united world. We are the world. Isn't that what they sung? We are the world. Yeah, well,
What a repetitive song.
Yeah, it's a terrible song. I mean, and it also undermines the idea that we're a nation state that could take care of ourselves. Okay, that's enough of Besson. It froze up, and then he's making the point that it's time to take care of the United States workers, and that's what Trump is doing with these tariffs. Now, I'm going to talk about the tariffs and we're talking about them now. The tariffs are going to continue to tank the stock market, and the stock market, unfortunately, needs to be tanked because it's in a big bubble. Stocks are way overvalued. I'll take a look at Apple, and Warren Buffett got out of Apple. Apple's lost a tremendous amount of value, and all these stocks are buoyed up by the fact that we just have been Biden pumping liquidity. $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there that we don't have. We're now up to approaching $34 trillion in our national debt. It's unsustainable. Got $1 trillion in interest rate payments on the debt alone. And, that's about all we take in income tax. I don't know why we're bothering. Why we use the monetary theory and print a $34 trillion coin and pay it all off. And then shut down the Federal Reserve. We don't need to be paying interest to issue our money. Their modern monetary theory, if we're supposed to be the sovereign, then just print the money. And nobody supporting monetary theory can answer the question except that they like the Federal Reserve. They like giving all the power to the bankers because the bankers support war and all of the Congress makes money on war. I want Congress to start investigating every single person in Congress who's worth more than their salaries would be giving them. Harry Truman said, the only way to make money in politics is to be a crook. We've got a Congress full of crooks. Okay, Elizabeth Warren, $67 million. How many is Mitch McConnell worth? Was his wife Elaine Chao? All the money he got from China. Or all of our family in China be dead if Mitch McConnell wasn't owned by China. That's our problem with our Congress. They're either compromised by money from the lobbyists, or they've been to the drug sex parties that are available to them in Washington, D.C., P. Diddy and Epstein and all the rest of them, compromising them. We've got a compromised Congress. It's time to get rid of them all and put new people in there with term limits. But investigate them. Okay, Department of Justice, here's the methodology. You create a task force. You appoint Department of Justice attorneys to it. You appoint FBI to it. You've got grand jury power. You've got subpoena power. You investigate. You bring indictments. You convict. It's not hard. Why aren't we investigating Congress? What's stopping you? You're not investigating anything as far as I can tell. And how about going after, these judges who are trying to block Trump's agenda with lawfare? Okay, so the point is the economy is going to tank for a while. Dow Jones futures are 800 points down right now before the market opens. So we're going to go through another day. The market closed yesterday at 37,645 points. I'm telling you, the market's going to go under 35,000 points. That's going to be losing 10,000 points. That's trillions of dollars of capital evaporated. Okay, that's going to hurt. But again, the whole structure of free trade, sending our jobs to, slave labor in China, and instead of manufacturing here, and every president has done this. George W. Bush with his Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America. We're going to integrate the regulations of Mexico, Canada, the Three Amigos, and the United States. We want to have Three Amigos parties over and over and over again while the bureaucrats were working together to create a North American Union. Well, I wrote the late great USA on that, and we stopped it. This huge highway, 8 football fields or 10 football fields wide, going through the heart of Texas to Kansas City port, was a Mexican customs office. And they're going to have all this multimodal traffic and trucks and trains from these deep sea ports in Mexico that we're going to bring in all the cargo ships from China with the cheap goods. Well, you bring all the cheap goods you want, but the American workers don't have jobs. The middle class is destroyed. Who's going to buy this crap? Okay, so China ought to take this crap and shove it. And China is also producing videos showing fat Americans and hateful to Americans. They're conditioning their own people for the next war they're going to start with Taiwan. China's got to understand that there's a new sheriff in town, and they're not getting away with this old order globalism. Even Klaus Schwab is talking about retiring before he is investigated and indicted. Of course, in the EU, if you dare to say anything about the government, you're going to be in prison for a hate crime. Governments that are at the verge of toppling resort to censorship to preserve themselves. And that's the death signals we're seeing in the European Union right now. And it will further decline as Europe spirals down into a depression, holding to net zero, the climate hoax, and stopping using hydrocarbon fuels. And the idea that Macron's going to put boots on the ground in Lithuania or in Ukraine, and the French are going to fight a war, forget it. It will take Europe 10 years to reorganize. And by the way, Putin just took the last part of the Kursk invasion into Russia that Ukraine did months ago. And I think now once the Kremlin's got Kursk back, we'll see some progress on the peace negotiations. And Donald Trump is now contemplating taking 10,000 troops out of Europe. He ought to just quit funding NATO, quit funding Zelenskyy, quit giving Zelenskyy weapons, and Zelenskyy should be also investigated for his crimes in stealing money. Between Kolomoisky and Pinochet and the other oligarchs who have already tied up Ukraine's natural resources through Zelenskyy, you've got crime continuing and rampant in Ukraine with money laundering going on and the CIA running the drug trade and running the pedophilia trade and the child sex trade on the border. Okay, we don't need the CIA anymore. It's a criminal dysfunction, anti-American organization. Thank you, Alan Dulles. Okay, so we're seeing all of this come together at a time when the economy is going to crash. Now, gold, and a crash is inevitable, and it's also going to be the kind of thing that will be necessary. Like Trump says, we're taking medicine right now, and to revive the middle class, we've got to take this medicine. Without a middle class, the United States is not a stable country. No country, Aristotle said this, no country is stable without a stable middle class. Now, gold is, again, just went over $3,000 an ounce. Right now it's trading at $3,000 and $3,053.29 an ounce. And silver's at $30.28 an ounce. And the Dow is down again. The Dow futures is down another 800 points. So if you didn't take my advice earlier, take it now. Call Swiss America. I'm imploring you to call Swiss America. Get a copy of this book I've written, how the coming global crash, which is now happening, will create an historic gold rush. Gold's going to go to $5,000 or $6,000 an ounce. So it's actually cheap at $3,000 an ounce, although it was a lot cheaper at $1,800 an ounce when I started this theme. Okay, call Swiss America, 1-800-519-6268. Create a self-directed IRA in which you can start buying some gold and silver with your retirement money. This is a necessity right now. It doesn't matter if you don't have millions of dollars. Whatever you've got, you can have your gold and silver increasing in value while you are seeing your dollars buy less, and you're seeing all the investments that we have in the stock market starting to collapse. And it'll be ultimately a credit collapse once it hits the commercial real estate, once it hits the amount of Americans who have been taking money out of their IRAs and 401ks just to survive. Well, your IRAs and your 401ks, you're going to take 1/4 to 1/2 loss on if you decide to stick with your mutual funds. You think your mutual funds give a damn about you? All they want is your money under management. So we'll shift here to these funds, shift to these funds. You're paying them assets under management fees when you could be buying gold and silver and keeping it in a depository in Delaware that is insured by Lloyd's of London for the value of the gold and silver. And you could be earning money on that gold and silver right now. Self-directed IRAs are the mandatory way to go. Call Swiss America. If you're a first-time buyer, you can also pick up 250 of these Walking Liberty $50 are really their cost in silver. It's a good deal to work with Swiss America. Again, 1-800-519-6268. Write it down. 1-800-519-6268. Call them. I'm telling you, this is not getting better before it gets worse. Okay, Chris, let's play now Trump and what he said in his speech last night. Let's cue that up and play it. I think Trump is on the warpath, and he's trying to get a budget through Congress, and it passed the Senate. It's now in the House, and it's a test of Mike Johnson as to whether he can get the job done.
We passed a big, beautiful bill because that's going to be, and I really think we're helped a lot by the tariff situation that's going on, which is a good situation, not a bad. It's great. It's going to be legendary. You watch, legendary in a positive way, I have to say. It's going to be legendary, but I really think it actually puts pressure on those few Republicans that just can't get there. You know what the alternative is? A Democrat bill or a chapter for the country. You know, we have the debt continuation, and they have to do this. They have to get there, and I think we are there. We had a great meeting today. I think we are there, but just in case there are a couple of Republicans out there, you just got to get there. Close your eyes and get there. It's a phenomenal bill. Stop grandstanding. Just stop grandstanding. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. You know, their policy, the Democrats, is horrible. It's horrible. Think of it, open borders, just all of the horrible, stupid things they have. You don't have energy. You don't have anything. They've lost their confidence. Everything is bad. But the one thing, they always vote in unison. You don't see somebody that's holding up. I'm going to hold up. And the alternative is hell. You know, the alternative is hell. So the Republicans, just that one little thing the Republican Party has to do is get together and damn vote. If you're a single guy or a second guy, and you fight like hell for what you get, and then in the end you have to vote because the policy is phenomenal. You know, they don't get every little ounce. It doesn't work that way. And this bill that we're working on now is the best I think we've ever passed. Mike, wherever you may be, it's the best. I think it's the best thing we'll get it passed.
Okay, so now it's time for hardball. What you do is what Trump is going to do, at least I hope he does, is tell these rhino Republicans we're gonna primary against you. You're out of here. We're also going to investigate your money. See where you got all your money. Let's put pressure on these guys. They want to play cutesy games with their Democratic buddies across the aisle where they're all making money at the expense of the American people, having a bloated bureaucracy, giving it trillions of dollars that are made up from the Treasury. You know, the Federal Reserve just continues to increase our debt, so the payments to the bankers multiply. And what happens to the money is it gets sent through a U.S. aid or another bogus program, and it ends up being stolen by a leftist NGO like Act Blue. By the way, that's another task force. Where's the task force on Act Blue? Where's the Patel and Bondi? Where's the task force investigating the Democrats' money fraud? These are crimes. Act Blue is a crime. Now, what are you afraid of the Democrats? Pat Bondi, what are you trying to support? Come on, trying to support DeSantis? You got a job to do in justice. And justice has a simple job, and that is investigate and prosecute. If you don't set up a task force, if you don't go after a target, you're nowhere. I don't see any targets. Where are the investigations? You know, I'm getting frustrated with this. Okay, so, you know, the whole point here is that we need action now, not before the midterm elections, and we still have all the algorithms and we're still in the courts, and Trump can't get his voter ID or citizenship in because of the lawfare. Reorganize the federal courts. And by the way, John, you know, if you've got Chief Justice Roberts over there blowing smoke out of you don't know what, trying to impress his country club buddies about his hate Trump abilities, ignore his Supreme Court rulings. Ignore them. What's he going to do? Scream and shout and throw a tantrum from the Supreme Court? This guy's a joker. I opposed Harriet Miers when he got the job from George W. Bush, because Harriet Miers was involved in the Texas scandal, the Texas lottery scandal. It's complicated, but that had a lot to do with George W. Bush and the Air National Guard in Vietnam and dodging Vietnam and all the rest of that crap. Okay, well, then he went to Justice Roberts, and Roberts said he was a conservative. Well, Obama compromised Roberts somehow or other, and it wasn't hard. The guy is a nothing. He supported Obamacare, you know, so Roberts needs to go. And ignoring him is the best thing to do. He has no enforcement power. I repeat this. So same thing, I'm driving home the points about Bondi and Patel. Let's get on with it. I know it's not yet 100 days. I know that Trump as a president, I think in my lifetime, he's by far the best. Even better than, I like Jack Kennedy a lot, but even better than Jack Kennedy, because Trump is taking action against the bureaucracy. Kennedy didn't really do it. He said he was going to break up the CIA into 1,000 parts. He didn't do it before the CIA killed him. Thank you, Alan Dulles. Well, now we've got a president who knows that the job is to set out the moral tone, the objectives of where we're going. He's saying, here's where we're headed. It's going to be a golden era. We're going to restore the middle class. We're going to bring jobs back to the United States. Yeah, he'll negotiate the treaties. And by the way, he's not going to keep the tariffs this high if the countries work with us. He wants equal footing. Doesn't want us not able to sell our goods in a country that is, you know, having tariffs against us, and we don't do anything in retaliation. China, he's going to put 108% of China. China objected to 50%, so he doubled it. He doubled down. Well, again, is it going to cause an international economic crisis? Bring it on. Because this debt bubble is going to burst. We might as well have it burst now. And it's going to burst hard. And it's going to be painful. But we'll get through it with jobs coming back to the United States, with investment coming back to the United States, with the economic strength of the United States being built again as we clean the country out from Democrat communist traitors who need to be investigated. Okay, there was also a clip, you know, these clips about Adam Schiff. He also said Adam Schiff, Trump also tore into Adam Schiff yesterday. Where is the criminal investigation of Adam Schiff? I can give you, I've written about it. Look, all the Department of Justice has to do is take my files down here, and I could indict 250 people between the Clinton Foundation, Operation Crossfire Hurricane, going back to Dubai ports, going back to, you know, we're not managing our ports anymore. That's another theme I'm going to get on. Okay, and if Justice Department and our justices want to stand in the way, the president is the head of the executive department. He can introduce a bill to reorganize the courts, and Congress, if it doesn't want to do it, then we identify the rhinos in Congress who are blocking us, and we primary them. Okay, we put money into defeating them. And we make it clear that the Democrats probably have stolen 20 seats in the House and probably 5 in the Senate. We have criminal prosecutions to end this voter fraud. Okay, and it's massive and systematic. And it's within the state board of elections that computers have been penetrated. Let's find out who did that. It won't be hard once we get a hold of the servers. You can't get a hold of the servers if you don't create a task force, you don't have DOJ attorneys, FBI, and subpoenas. Let's subpoena every 50 states, their computer systems for their voter integrity effort, and let's see how they're cheating and stealing from within the Department of Board of Elections. Now, even if the Board of Elections aren't doing it, someone's in there doing it. Someone's penetrated those computers. If they can be penetrated and code put into the server of the voter registration official database, well, then foreign countries can access our computers and run our election, or the CIA may already be doing it, which is what I suspect. Okay, now, Chris, we have one more clip we wanted to play today. You have several that were queued up. Let's see if we have another one. And meanwhile, I'm going to shift over to end with talking about Ukraine and Iran and the Mideast.
Well, let's just say he went on the attack during the speech, rightfully so as well, because what the Democrats doing is what he's saying.
Our opponents are not afraid that our America First policies will fail. They're terrified that our strategy will succeed and we're going to get bigger and stronger and better as a party. And that's what's happening. And that is what's happening. It's going to be something. And I'm actually looking forward to the midterms. I really are. We're going to prove that all of their treasonous years of betrayal will not be forgotten, because it's treason. What they did is treason. When they allowed millions of people to pour in through open borders from all over the world, they came. To me, that's treason. What they've done to our country is unthinkable. The money we have to spend to take people out. And then we have judges that say, no, let Trende Araqua come back into our country. They want him to come back in. Killers. They cut off a man's, our opponent.
Okay, that's good enough. He's on the theme, at least, of them being traitors. I wish he'd add communist traitors to it. And that would really get it. And also, the idea that we're going to win the midterms, not unless we get Bondi and Patel into gear. They don't get their asses into gear, we're done. They'll steal. The Democrats are ready to steal the midterms. They stole this judgeship in Wisconsin. They stole elections. They're stealing elections all through the United States in the down ballot elections. And we're going to catch them on that, and we're going to make sure it stops. We're going to make sure we get voter IDs, citizenships, paper ballots, and elections that mean something, not elections these Democrat communist traitors steal. If they are given a chance, they'll co-opt the Republicans, they'll buy, or they'll, show the Republicans, they'll blackmail the Republicans in whom they've got sex charges. And by the way, Bondi and Patel, where are the let's get this P. Diddy list too. Where's the Epstein list? Why aren't we prosecuting this FBI guy in New York who did not turn over to Pam Bondi, in fact, made a fool of Pam Bondi by getting her to release stuff on Jeffrey Epstein that had already been released? Well, Pam Bondi shouldn't be made a fool of. She's the attorney general. She's got enormous powers. Why doesn't she use them? Bill Barr had enormous power, and he used them the way he was intending to use them, same way John Roberts was using them, and that is for treasonous purposes to support the Democrats and to protect their crimes. Okay, we do not need Venezuelan gang members here. Let's send them all to El Salvador. El Salvador will know how to deal with them. If we start being the United States of America again, and not this communist critical race theory crap, we'll get back to. And by the way, the school systems that don't want to teach, don't want to get rid of the critical race theory and the gender dysphoria, stop their funding. So no more funding for the New York public schools. Won't bother me in the least. Close them all down. Close down the teachers. Close down all the public schools. For all I care, they're worthless. They're not teaching anybody anything except for communist, traitorous ideas. The same with the universities. We want to prevent another generation from being indoctrinated with neo-Marxism and cultural Maoism. That's why I wrote that book on this. And again, it needs to be read. It's not an easy book to read. But if you want to understand how this developed, you'll see that the entire purpose of the Democratic Party is to destroy America, and the communist neo-Marxism and cultural Maoism that they're using is in fact intended to destroy America, so they can rebuild their communist dictatorial utopia. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about Russia and the Middle East. Russia is saying, let's make sure in the ceasefire that Ukraine doesn't rearm. So President Trump says, I'm cutting off the funding to Zelenskyy. This jerk wants to go off and flap his mouth and even in the Oval Office in front of reporters, embarrass the President of the United States. Screw him. Throw him to the dogs. He won't last long among those dogs in Ukraine if he's not serving the purpose of Pinochet and Kolomoisky. He's an actor. He's doing more cocaine than, on the face of the earth anybody has probably done, except maybe Bill Clinton. Okay, and get rid of him and let him fend for himself in Ukraine. See how long he lasts. That's the solution. Cut Zelenskyy off at the knees and watch Ukrainians throw him to the dogs. In the meantime, end the war. It's not hard to do. 1 or 2 decisions by Donald Trump, and this war will be over. Okay, now the Middle East. We appear to be arming so that we can do a strike against Iran, which means Iran is on the verge of having, I think Iran has probably about 6 or 7 nukes already. And they're going to be given a short period of time to negotiate and get rid of them. And the meeting between Netanyahu and Trump in the White House, they did not hold a press conference. I'm sure what they were talking about is striking Iran. And it seems to be in the works right now. I've only been talking about this since about 2006 when I wrote Atomic Iran. And I've consulted with the government in Israel. The government of Israel will do whatever is necessary to protect Israel. That means whatever. If they had to go into a nuclear war to protect Israel, they would do it, even if it triggered a thermonuclear war. We can't have wars anymore, because any war we have anywhere in the world could turn thermonuclear in about 20 seconds. We don't want World War III. Then we've got to make sure that we deal with these underlying problems. The only way to deal with the Middle East is, let's take Libya seriously. We have an offer from Libya to take in the people from the Gaza Strip. So right now, Trump has authorized Netanyahu to go in and kill Hamas, destroy Hamas, and then make it unlivable, and they can't return. Then we'll relocate them. If the Palestinians return, Hamas will come back. Lebanon's already begging for the put down its arms. If only Israel will stop the invasion into Lebanon. Press hard into Lebanon and kill Hezbollah the same way you're killing Hamas. And now we'll deal with Iran. And then once we see that the alternative is peace, and we go after the terror masters and cut off their money. Without their money, there is nothing. Their gold and silver and oil won't be worth crap if they can't place it on the market. And if we starve them in terms of their money and threaten them with the military action, we'll give them an opportunity to do the right thing. If they don't do the right thing, then there's no alternative but a massive strike. And we were beyond the B-52s. We're putting stealth long-range bombers right now into the Middle East, and I'm sure the plans have been developed. Hegseth will not hesitate. And we don't have Obama around who's compromised, saying in Cairo he's experienced Islam on 3 continents. I wrote in the Obama Nation in 2008 that he was a Muslim. Even we had the proof he was raised as a Muslim in an Indonesian school. We had the school records. All Obama did is lie. Okay, including about his birth certificate. We found the birth certificate from which his was copied. Sheriff Arpaio proved it by forensic labs, even in Europe, saying we were right. The press didn't report on that. And now even Michelle, whomever she is, or he is, or it is now turning against Obama in her pathetic podcast. Right now, Donald Trump is winning. And thank God for Donald Trump. I think we should support him 100% and pray for his success. The hand of God's been on Donald Trump, or he would have been killed in that assassination attempt. And in conclusion, God always wins. God's going to win in these issues too. It's just we have to make sure that our side has the courage to use the tools they've been given. With that courage, we can change the world. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. Do not forget to repent. Your 2 Chronicles 7:14. Thank you for joining us on CorsiNation.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.